Welcome to Geordie Lass Doc Sass. One day, a Geordie and a Canadian walk into a bar and decide to start a podcast about relationships and what a topic that is. No subjects are off limits. Get in touch today with us at geordielass.com or email info@geordielass.com and let us know what you think and what we should talk about. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Hi. Oh my gosh. I feel like we have not met for a while.
It does feel like a while, yes.
Oh my gosh. It has been. Wow. Okay. Hello again.
Hello.
Yeah. How are things going?
Things are very good, thank you. Yes, I've just had a beautiful holiday in Mexico with my daughter and catching some sunshine, reading some books, chilling out, nice dip in the pool. It's lovely. So nice to be in warm weather, isn't it?
Oh gosh. Did you guys get any, did you guys do any off resort, like crazy, massive margarita, you know, those huge, like, I don't know, they make these like big bongs of margaritas and stuff like that. Did you guys basically go misbehaving?
No, we didn't actually. We were quite good. We just stayed in the resort, didn't venture out this time because we've been before and we did lots of lovely trips last time, and we just decided that we're going to take full advantage of doing absolutely sweet bugger all and eating lots of nice scrummy food. But yes, we did partake in margaritas.
Oh, very nice.
But not huge giant ones, just regular size.
Totally, that's wonderful. Oh, wonderful. And so well deserved because you've been working really hard.
Yes, it was much needed. So how are you, lovely?
Well, so I'm from Greece, and I will be staying here if, one-way ticket booked. And
so you are fully dispatched, and that is you.
Yeah, I am in Greece now.
For the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future, one-way ticket, and I packed all my hopes and dreams in my suitcases and oversized luggage. And I, very importantly, brought my paddles here. And wherever my paddles go, that's where home is. So there's been I'm in. So I'm really excited. It's a new adventure. Yeah, and I will keep everybody tuned.
I am wondering how you get paddles on an airplane because we struggle to get anything that's beyond the size of a miniature suitcase on board. So I'm not quite sure how you've managed that, but fair play to you.
Gosh, I tell you, I've never negotiated oversized luggage, and it is not cheap. Having said that, it was way cheaper to pension off my entire life and just bring essentially 6 backpacks full. Like that was basically my move, and pay the extra baggage on an airplane, then do some sort of like thousands of dollars of hiring a moving company. So all in all, I going to nearly zero, like selling most of my stuff off and then, you know, kind of paying a little bit of extra overweight baggage. And actually things didn't turn out that bad. And so far as I can tell, things weren't broken. So I think everything is okay. Yeah, weirdly, everything's going all right.
It's good.
I'm knocking on wood, which is basically me like tapping on my head, because things have been really smooth. I think that important things in life you have to really work for, and they'll be challenging and you have to keep overcoming. But then there are certain things where it all feels like, okay, I mean, it's hard work, but the doors open up. And then I've been finding that, knock on wood, with this move to Greece, that for some reason the sun has been smiling for some reason on this particular move. I don't know why. Life isn't often that easy.
Well, long may it continue, my lovely.
And when the storm does come, I'm just like, I got some jackets and I don't mind hanging out there in the rain if I have to, so long as I've got a warm beverage and good company. And that's all that you need.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
So speaking of, did you miss the heat wave in Jersey?
Well, this will literally make you laugh, right? So I have not been plagued with I have been plagued, should I say, with weather disasters. Mm-hmm. So we left Jersey and it was the weather wasn't so great.
Yeah.
Then I reckon pretty much we had a day in London before we flew off to Mexico, so that was really nice. And the weather was okay. It wasn't kind of too hot, wasn't too cold. We were able to sit outside and have like a little drink and stuff. That was quite nice. And then the following day we flew off to Mexico. And I think the day that we flew off then and left the vicinity of kind of the Channel Islands in the UK, the sun decided it was going to come out.
Oh,
and then we arrived in Mexico and we were sat having first evening meal. So we got there in time to kind of have dinner. And you just won't believe it. The heavens just opened.
What? No,
So
it rained in
we're
Mexico?
outside in
What?
this restaurant. Happily, it was kind of undercover, but I mean, the rain was so heavy, like you could literally see it bouncing. So we had to kind of move in a little bit, so we could still kind of stay outside. It was still warm enough, but yeah, the skies did open. So we did have, I think we had one day where it was kind of a bit thundery and dark and wasn't quite as nice as the rest of them, but it was one day. So we embraced it for all it was and enjoyed it anyway. But yeah, they had a lovely, gorgeous heat wave. And then, of course, the second we come back and it starts raining.
Oh my gosh. I tell you, it feels like rain has been like following you around like cat fur on a black jacket. Oh, gosh.
It has indeed.
Oh,
it has indeed.
Gosh. Well,
but yeah. It's all good. I'm not going to complain.
Warm inside, so that is good. Okay, all right.
Exactly.
And is it full on fall? Have you guys gotten into, is it the descent into Christmas?
No, we did actually have, we've had some decent weather still. So, yeah, I'm going to hold on to it as long as possible.
Well, speaking of holding on to sunshine, what's going on at the Desk of Love, Miss Relationship Correspondent?
Yes. So, on the Desk of Love today, we are going to talk about relationships with siblings.
Oh, geez. Gosh, why is this on topic for me? Couldn't come at a better time. Okay.
Well, I came across this kind of little post around relationships with siblings, and I thought it was quite interesting. So it says, here's why it's perfectly natural not to have a close relationship with your siblings.
Okay.
So it says, many well-meaning parents love the idea of their adult children being close or best friends. I was reading that and I'm thinking, well, that is true. I mean, who wouldn't want their kids to get on?
I mean, who raises children thinking that they're going to be enemies? You're absolutely right. It doesn't even cross your mind. Yeah.
So it says, typically this comes from a part of them that has regret or disappointment from how their own relationships with their siblings turned out. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, I get you. And then it says, or a belief that the closeness they have with their own siblings should be something that they should experience. So it's either that you've had a great relationship and you want your kids to have the same thing, or you didn't have such a great relationship and you want better for your children. So it says some parents struggle to see their adult children as unique human beings with interests, hobbies and personality traits. So it can be difficult for them not to understand why you might not be compatible as friends. It says we can love and appreciate our siblings whilst also not sharing any of the same interests, values or hobbies. For some people, the only thing that they actually have in common with a sibling is that they share the same parents.
Totally.
So
how interesting. Oh, I think that this probably prompts some stuff for both of us, which is interesting. And that's something that it's funny. Now that I'm hearing this, I'm like, oh yeah. Actually, I learned something new today because I do carry some guilt that not all of us are close, even though when we were younger, we were like, well, nothing will ever rip us apart. We were so close when we were younger. And so... And there's a guilt, like why, I'm the oldest and why didn't we all stay as close and so forth. But now as I hear these words that you share with me, I'm like, oh yeah, we all assume that we should all get along. And if we don't, that there's something wrong. But what you're saying is maybe there's something wrong about the assumption that totally different people with the only unifying thing is we came out of the same uterus. And that might not even be the case. Maybe we're adopted siblings, whatever that might be. Why should we necessarily have things in common? That's true. Interesting. All right. Thank you. We talk about every sort of relationship on this podcast, not just intimate partner relationships.
Well, they're all important, right? I think we are, as human beings, you're interconnected across kind of so many different relationships. And often the things that play out in romantic relationships, you also can see some of those play out in some of the other relationships that we have in life. So it is important not to forget about them because often the same challenges are going to face you.
Yeah, entirely. Oh, okay. Well, I got us started.
Okay.
I feel like I'm back in the desk. It has been a bit of a break since we recorded. And you know how you feel like you're going back to school after a summer vacation, you feel pretty rusty.
Yeah.
But then after the first day, you're like, oh my God, I've got this. That's what I'm feeling now. I've got this.
We've totally got this.
Totally got this. Totally.
So would you like to get a hot topic?
Yes, let's go.
Okay. Today's hot topic: breaking negative cycles and creating new patterns.
Oh, yes. Negative cycles individually, negative cycles as a partnership. And actually, what is negative cycle? It's like a negative culture. Like we can even look at the workplace and say that a culture is a pattern of habits based on rules or maybe unspoken rules. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I have, through kind of some of the work that I've been doing with couples more recently, some of the things that I think that come up, and the thing immediately when I think about this hot topic, this kind of popped into my head, is around kind of the old story versus kind of what actually reality is. And I think sometimes with some of this, we can often feel like we've done an awful lot of work and we've put in kind of a lot of effort to try and change some of patterns of behaviour. And we've changed those, but the brain hasn't quite let go of the old story about why things were the way they were, or how things are, or how you feel about the relationship. So sometimes, even when we've done kind of a huge amount to clear things out and to readdress things and to get into kind of healthier ways, we can still be, holding on to this kind of old narrative about how the relationship is.
Yeah, totally. Oh, gosh, yeah. I think that before you clean anything out, you have to realize it's there. And it's not easy to see because, again, we all too often believe everything that we think. And that's one of the biggest things we have to understand. We cannot believe everything we think. We can't even really believe or put too much stock in everything we feel because feelings are quite transient. But the messages seem so real. And we have to at least have insight to say maybe it's quite possible the way that pattern of thinking or that old message, to even see it that it may not be 100% true is like the first step before we do any clean out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's challenging your own reality, and this comes from kind of, I think as you're saying, we've got to have awareness, we've got to understand exactly what's going on. And I think part of the picture, whether it's understanding the old narrative or whether it's just taking a bit of an assessment to see kind of where are we at, is to try and take that kind of step back to look at your relationship. And a question that I often ask clients is, if you were watching your relationship play out like a movie, what would you be seeing as the viewer of your relationship? Because it allows you to kind of almost take a step out and look holistically inwards as a third party almost. So if you can get kind of a client to come, to think about that conceptually and really kind of look at the relationship from that view, then it can be really, really helpful to say, well, actually kind of what would people say about us? How would they view us? Oh,
what's interesting is I think about, like, what if somebody filmed you in your kitchen, at your kitchen table, or making dinner? One common pattern is one person is trying to communicate by some means, maybe not effective, and the other person is terrified too, and so they'll shut down and they'll avoid the conversation, and then there's passive aggressiveness, and so you can kind of see these slings and arrows kind of. We've talked about the crockery, breaking a few dishes, or at least slamming them, slamming things around to sort of let our partner know that. And so these negative patterns of hit and misses, mostly misses in our communication. If somebody just had a camera up in our kitchen. Yeah. What would we be proud of? What would we be not so proud of if we were to just see it play up on screen? What would we cringe at? Like some of those really well-made films that are very realistic, which show sort of maybe a partnership, a husband and wife slowly breaking apart. Like you're watching it, you're watching a slow train wreck. So not to say that everything is like dour and bad and sad and relationships, but the negative patterns. Like if
Yeah.
We can see it in a film, with a fictional set of characters.
Well, that's the thing though, isn't it? It's always easier to see kind of what other people are doing than it is to see what's playing out in your own relationship. I love watching kind of films about relationships. I love watching programs, like reality programs about relationships. I love just watching kind of, any sort of like reality show where you see relationships interacting, because it's really, really clear to be able to see as the viewer looking at the screen about actually, they're not communicating very well with each other, or they're not being kind of nice to each other, not using kind words, they're not showing appreciation, they're not showing any kind of warmth or gratitude or being thankful for what they've got in the relationship. There isn't, you can almost see kind of two people that are, at a kind of, not loggerheads as in visually, although sometimes you can as well, but, that kind of, you can see the undercurrent almost kind of playing out sometimes amongst people. And, very often that can happen in our own relationship, but we're just not able to see it in the same way that you can see something when you watch it out on screen and it's somebody else and you're not emotionally invested.
That's the key. Yeah, that's the key. I was on the flight over, and there, I was in the sort of the middle section of this massive plane, and a couple of seats over there was a couple, and the guy was sort of on the phone for quite a while talking business. And then he gets off the phone and he asks for his wife to pass him a bag or something, and she kind of just chucks it and shoves it into his. He's like, hey, calm down. And she sort of retorts with this thing, and then there was silence. But it was pretty obvious that there was something about, maybe she had asked him, like, can you not take work calls on our vacation? And yet here he is having this massive, and probably not, I was overhearing, the entire plane could hear what he was talking about. It wasn't rocket science. It could have waited, right? So you see these things so clearly playing out as your voyeur, playing voyeurism into other people's lives in a coffee shop or on a plane or on a bus. We see it so clearly when it's somebody else. So imagine that you do start to see some of your negative patterns. What do you do to start to correct them? Other than waiting for the other person to change.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think one of the things that that you do need to do is accept responsibility. So I had a very interesting discovery call recently with a couple, and the conversation was kind of playing out, and they were very kind of tense with each other. Obviously, that's why they kind of needed some help and support. So they're very kind of tense, but they were also very, very defensive as well about their own positions. And, the question came up about, between them, not kind of question directly from me, but was around kind of, is your expectation that by doing this, I'm the one that's going to change?
Oh, wow. Yes.
So in order for any relationship dynamic to change, both parties have got to accept they will be playing some responsibility in it.
Oh my, when
you get a situation, where somebody's just defensive, they kind of almost refuse to see their partner, they just want to see the part that their partner's played. It can be very, very difficult, nigh and impossible to start to unpick any negative patterns of behaviour, because it takes two people. Relationships like a dance, and, it's either going to be a dance that you're going to absolutely enjoy and embrace and, feel delighted by, or it's going to be a dance that, just feels horrendous and like it's never going to end, and you're never quite in the same kind of groove as each other, or kind of holding time with each other.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. There are a number of people who will hire us, and we know that the motive is to have a third person in the room to be witness to their partner's craziness, and to say to the partner, like, oh, you're batshit crazy, poor so-and-so. So funny enough, the person who reaches out for counseling or coaching is oftentimes the person who's like, no, I don't need to change. My partner needs to change. I just want another person to tell them that and recognize that I'm right. And it's the whole need to be right. Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah. So I think that is the hardest part, is just actually both of you accepting responsibility for what's going on and then wanting to do something about it. So, often I think the other thing that comes up as well is that it's not that easy to kind of change patterns of behaviour. We know that the brain is programmed really well to do things habitually because it saves us time, it keeps us safe, it means that we don't have to relearn things. The brain creates neural pathways that connect things together that say, when you do this, I do that, then kind of it all works. And sometimes that doesn't work in a kind of positive impact. It has a negative impact because we get caught in these cycles of actually when you do this and I feel like you are, I feel rejected by you, then I'm going to shut down, withdraw, and that's going to be my response mechanism to be able to deal with that. So if that's the case, actually not kind of shutting down or being aware that the first thing is to be aware that you're shutting down, if we use that as an example. So I'm internally, I can feel that I am wanting to shut off. And in that moment, the trick is to say, I really feel like I want to shut down right now, but I'm not going to, because I recognise that it hasn't helped us in the past. And then you may make a request to your partner, you may ask them to do something.
Oh gosh, that's a beautiful reckoning.
So you may then request something from your partner in order to kind of help you in that moment. But it's important that we can kind of change some of those patterns. Like before I went on holiday, I was just kind of like up. I was stressed to heaven, had lots of things going on all at the same time. Then other events take over that are outside of my control and just literally cause me to be kind of up against it without kind of anywhere else to go. And in those moments, you know, it's understandable that you're going to get quite stressed. And I just like said to my partner, I said, look, I just can't. We were supposed to be going out for dinner because it's the last night. I was going away with my daughter, so we're not going to have any time together. And it's just like, I've got to be honest, I can't do that because we'll go. I'm not going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy it because I'm going to be thinking about all the stuff that I've got to do when I get back. So, you know, can we change plans? Can we do something different? And he's like, yeah. But without that communication, without sharing what's going on inside, we just end up in a hot mess. And then it's all a bit crap before you go away. And we probably would have had a massive argument and then kind of, you know, ignored each other for kind of the week whilst I wasn't here. And, you know, you can see how an event can play out in multiple different ways. But if we take the extremes, it's either going to be kind of, you know, a situation that wasn't the best, but we can still kind of make it as good as it can be, or kind of force against it and, you know, try and kind of push through and it ends up being a disaster.
I do like that, which is the explaining what's going on behind the scenes. And actually I've been learning to use that, which is because I've noticed certain behaviors where I get super weird or strange or short or, and as I'm starting to kind of get insight about what I am and who I am and so forth, I start to realize like, this is where I feel super awkward and this is where I just behave really bizarrely and I just may need some time to be able to, or I get really stressed out around travel. I didn't used to, but I just need to be early to airports now.
Too.
It's ridiculous now. And
honestly, I'm getting worse.
How did I become such an idiot who needs to be like so there in advance? Anyways, but you know, and so long as I can talk it out, because that's not entirely feasible at all times. Like I do have to be able to accept some shortening of that window. Sarah's smiling. She's like, yeah, no.
No way.
Accept. No.
You get there very early. That's the way it works. No shortening of windows, Anna.
No shortening of window. Well, you know, I am open to... I think that what's important is to know that the person has your best interest at heart, is not trying to kind of disregard what's important to you. I mean, whatever, so that they're really listening to you, but they're also helping to nudge you beyond your comfort zones, because sometimes our comfort zones are not healthy. We develop these odd patterns, and it is helpful sometimes for our person in our lives to be like, okay, you could probably loosen that up a little bit and not be so crazy. So I appreciate that. But yeah, it's letting somebody go behind the scenes so that I'm not just being bitchy without explanation, like a real bitch and, you know, shutting down, that I'm saying this is why I'm really clipped because I'm terrified, or I'm feeling very nervous or scared. Yeah. And this is how
it's true.
Help.
You know, the more that we can explain, exactly what's going on the inside, the easier it is then to manage those behaviours that happen, on the other side of that.
Well, especially because we all take something personally. However anybody is behaving in our vicinity, we assume it's because of us, because we are the center of our own world. So that's like a terrible interpretation. Like somebody's being a real, nasty person. What, because of you? Because you've done something wrong? Probably not, but that's the interpretation you run with. Opening this up as a question, like when you explain why you're acting in a certain way, it actually relieves a lot of stress and pressure. Like, oh, I thought you were mad at me. Oh, you mean we have an external enemy that we can both fight together? Perfect. I'll take the tail and you take the head. And that's how we should run it. Yeah. Oh, food for thought. I could go here all day, every day on this topic, breaking negative patterns. Oof.
I think it really is about understanding what are some of the behaviours or the impacts that are happening in your relationship that you're not pleased about, and then saying, what can I do in order to fix those? And it isn't about what do I need my partner to do. I think it is about what can I do? What's in my gift? What's within my control, and how can I start to impact that? Because we know that as one person kind of slowly changes and makes improvements, the other person recognises that. And then they very, very often, and I'm not saying it is the case in all situations, but very often they will then kind of, nudge and change with their behaviour too.
Very nice. And that's true. Oh, all right.
All right. Shall we take a question?
Yes, let's do it.
Today's question. I'm struggling with intimacy in my relationship. What are some of the ways that I can build trust and improve intimacy? And how can I start to implement those strategies in my relationship?
So my mind would go to one type of intimacy, as we all know. But let's broaden the lens and talk about what is the definition of intimacy?
So I would say intimacy is that feeling of closeness and connection that you get with another person, where you feel like the listener there mentions trust. So having high levels of trust with each other does actually help to create that level of intimacy. So, and it can come in multiple ways. So I'm pretty sure you're alluding to the sexual intimacy. And so that's one element of it. Yeah. But other elements are kind of having that emotional intimacy, having that kind of closeness, that physical intimacy, which might not necessarily be kind of full-blown sex, but it could be, just a touch of the hand, a stroke of the cheek, kind of, I'm just going to touch your hair, like anything where you've got that kind of connection. It could just be kind of sitting next to each other and being quite close, or having your kind of, if you're sat on the couch and you kind of lift your legs up and rest them on your partner's knee, or you can put your head against their shoulder. Any of those things are kind of like they're forms of physical intimacy and connection. But it, can be intellectual. So do I feel like we are kind of really, really connected? It might be spiritual, where it's about your kind of, I get your views on the world, or your value systems, or you've created kind of a life plan where you feel kind of really intimate and connected about that. So it can come in lots and lots of different ways. But I think very often when we do talk about intimacy, people are talking about sex. They just don't want to say the word sex.
That's so true. It's so true. I love it. That's so true. So let's stay broadened out and not sort of narrowed down, because it is, how do I build and cultivate intimacy in my relationship? How do I build trust? And it's a two to tango. There is a person who, there are two people, well, let's just, in a relationship, if there's two people who are building trust together, and it's getting vulnerable to let trust in, or to become trusting of somebody, and the other is to be trustworthy, to actually conduct yourself in a way that somebody can actually trust and rely upon, predictable, honest behavior. So it's kind of a two for tango there.
Definitely, yeah.
And what comes up for you when you're thinking about, building intimacy?
I think you should always start small and then kind of move out to a degree. There's a great diagram which shows your kind of your comfort zone, your stretch zone, your fear zone. And those circles get kind of bigger and bigger. And it's not that easy, I don't think, to jump from kind of a place where you feel comfortable to a place where you feel terrified and to do the things that you need to do in order to push yourself to those limits. So, I don't know, say if for you're in a situation where maybe kind of the sexual side of your relationship is completely dropped off a cliff and it's been like that for some time. So you've had kind of, years, say, of not having kind of that sexual connection to then kind of to make that leap then to go, well, I'm going to go from absolutely nothing where I'm kind of in this safe, comfortable zone where kind of feels okay to then go to kind of like, right, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to really kind of, get jiggy with it. Might be a step too far for you. So it might be that actually I've got to kind of build up to that. And maybe it is just that kind of physical touch that's probably disappeared as well, I would imagine. And it's just about kind of, maybe you hold hands across the dinner table or, practice giving each other a hug when you, at the start or the end of the day. So some of those little things and kind of build up to that. But I do also think you need to have a conversation about it. And we've talked in the past about people just really, really struggling to have a conversation about sex and kind of how they feel about that.
Yeah, it just... There's no better way than to actually just use your words. That is true. It seems, it's amazing what false interpretations and assumptions are there in between us if we don't actually shine a light on it and realize, oh, I did not know that was your impression. That's actually not true. And here's what is actually going on. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's also sort of knowing the stage. So if you've just met, it would be reasonable. I mean, it'd be reasonable to not let your guard down, to like follow the stage that's appropriate for the time that you've known the person and the intensity that you've shared with the person. So not to say that everybody is on the same timeline, but the trust that you're going to have at 6 weeks is going to be very different than the trust you'll have at 5 years or 20 years. So, I think sometimes too, we are in a hot rush to get somewhere, and it is actually important for things to also unfold. Because sort of intimacy is overrated in our society, and rushing there seems to be something that, like, the faster we get there, the faster we'll commit, the faster we'll be able to hit the milestones. Like, it's like a video game.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of things, like, don't outpace what is natural in many instances. Show up for every moment, but don't try to sort of make stuff that's actually not there or not timed to be.
It's no good trying to force the issue, is it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this is something that people do. I mean, I hear it a lot that, people are really kind of struggling with this area of their life. And I think the inability to be able to approach it means that people actually then, it can almost be easier just to kind of, write the relationship off and say goodbye than it can be to address some of it. And I think, as you say, our own interpretation of what we think is happening in that moment can often be the thing that sabotages us to be able to raise some of the feelings that we've got.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, when in doubt, and I've heard something that sounds really beautiful, is like, right now, because of my interpretations or my assumptions, I'm having a really uncharitable view about you or what's going on for you. And I don't want to have an uncharitable view. I want to have a nice rosy view. So help me rewrite what is going on in my head. And let's talk about what's actually going on. And
see, I love how polite you've put that. In reality, that would come out very different, wouldn't it?
In my life, it has come out very differently. Totally. Oh my gosh. Very true. And I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and just, give up on a relationship just because we couldn't do the hard things of actually bridging communication. Having said that, if a certain period of years go by and there's that much junk that's piled up, it is a Herculean feat to actually roll that back. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very hard. So if you are in a newer relationship and you're having a do-over moment, a chance to show up differently, that's where you can get really like that. These charitable words probably come to me because I'm feeling this optimism and a blank slate. A blank slate does have its benefits, and that is I get to reinvent myself and come to a relationship in a more mature, more communicative way, in a more generous way. And I'm not having to sort of appear to somebody who's known me forever and is like, oh, what are you doing? You never say that. You're always a real cow. Why are you now being nice to me? What's the ulterior motive? Where with a new blank slate, somebody's like, oh, that was a really nice way that you actually put that. Thank you for being so communicative and open. So, benefits of blank slate sometimes.
Well, yeah, but that's not to say that we can't kind of change our ways over time and, be able to share things in a different way with our partner. That's the beauty of having such a long life. You live and you learn and you show up in a different way when you know that the old shit hasn't been working.
Oh, that is so true. Everybody always changes. They'll change. Yeah. And many people change for the better. So, there's people who may have broken up with their ex and then their ex goes on to like have a really healthy relationship or maybe do some big foundational life things like have kids, but they were never really into it when they were with you. And you're like, oh my God, what a jerk. Why weren't they? We're all dynamic. We're all shifting and changing. We've even talked about it on a past podcast, oh, my ex always did this and always did that. No, I mean, check in with them 2 years later. They're probably different. They're probably improved. Hopefully you're improved too. Nobody stays the same. Nobody stays still.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh, all right. Well,
so
the sun has gone down on my neck of the woods because now I'm a little bit ahead of you. I'm 2 hours ahead of you. And I imagine the sun is just...
I know.
Yes. Isn't that weird?
It'll be time for your dinner as well, you see.
Well, it's so funny. It's so appropriate because dinner time in Jersey is probably a little bit, dinner time in Greece is like, I don't know, 9 or 10. So I think we're going to be perfectly... Yeah. Do you know what we are going to agree upon is drink time?
Yes, I know.
Now we're both wine o'clocking.
Yes, we'll have to podcast with vino.
Oh, yes. Oh, I tell you. Actually, I think I'm going to have a story for that next week on the topic of wine.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Okay, well, we shall look forward to that. Mm-hmm. Your next installment.
Indeed.
All right. Well, it is good to have you back.
Oh, it is good to be back, and it is good to have you back. We are back on Geordie Lass Doc Sass.
Yeah. All right. Till next time.
Till next time.
So that's it for another week of Geordie Lass Doc Sass. We hope you've enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed chatting. Get in touch and share your questions for relationship remedies and any hot topics you want us to cover. If you need help navigating all things relationships, Anna and Sara are available for one-on-one coaching support. Email info@geordielass.com. Please remember to like, share, subscribe if you've enjoyed listening. And if you've not, how on earth have you made it this far? I promise we'll try harder next time.